I'm absolutely delighted that we have Twiggy, who's the co-writer, protagonist of the film Kiki, but also an activist over in the States, incredibly inspiring person. Charlie Phillips, head of documentary at The Guardian, and we're going to have an in-conversation for about 20 minutes, and there's possibility for Q&A. So stick around, enjoy the conversation, and this exchange is now up for the rest of the week. It can be a home from home, so come, drop by, tell your friends, and handing over to Charlie.
The ripple of applause at 10:30 in the morning. Hello, everyone. So it's a real pleasure to be here with Twiggy Pucci Garcon. Can we have a round of applause for Twiggy, please?
Thank you.
Anyone who was at the Vogue party last night will know that it's an impressive achievement that Twiggy's here. He's a pro and he's here for this session. And thank you everyone for coming here. So Kiki played here last night. Did anyone here see it? Okay, so we've got one person, so not everyone here has seen it.
Okay.
So that's that, which is a good thing. So do you want to maybe just start by saying a little bit about the film, and then maybe we can see the trailer?
Sure, yeah. So Kiki's a film 4 years in the making that was released this year. It is about a subculture of the LGBT community in the States called the house and ballroom community. If anyone has heard of voguing, the dance form voguing, or a lot of people refer to Madonna's song Vogue, which references the dance Vogue, which comes from my community, the house and ballroom community. This film is about even a subculture within that subculture called the Kiki scene, which is youth-led. It's a youth-led movement of the house and ballroom community that is kind of centered in HIV and AIDS awareness and housing stability models and the like. So, yeah.
So it's very much a film made from within the community, isn't it?
Yeah. 4 years ago, even a little more than 4 years ago, myself and one of the other characters in the film, Kiki, who's my best friend, found ourselves wanting to create some sort of like video project, not knowing what that would look like, but about the community, for the community. A few months into this thought process, we worked together at the time. Our director had granted permission to Sarah to do interviews at our organization for something totally different. Learned that she was a filmmaker and visual artist and introduced us, and then the rest is history.
And here we are. Yeah.
Here we are.
And it premiered at Sundance.
Yeah, so world premiere was at Sundance this January. Yeah.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And you've been touring quite a few festivals since then, is that
Yeah,
right?
I think we've been in 4 continents, 8 countries. We won the Teddy Award at Berlinale. We won the Human Rights Award at Full Frame. And we've been nominated for a bunch of other things, but yeah.
Amazing. So you're here in Sheffield now, of course, and it played to a totally full, sold-out audience. People were waiting outside. So how was that experience of showing it in Sheffield?
Every festival is so uniquely different, and feel like the energy, the people, everything is so different. It felt really affirming to have an audience of people who either were aware of the community or not aware, or just interested in the film or specific people in the film. But ultimately, it felt affirming and very celebratory to have so many people come, attend, watch, be interested, into the Q&A, come to the party to support. It's been very sweet and kind. Yeah.
So as we said, there was the party last night as
Yes.
well, and that was kind of an amazing event, wasn't it?
Thank you. Yeah. So Sydney, who was one of the performers last night, reached out about, when is Kiki coming to the UK? When is it coming? When is it coming? And I'm like, Sheffield. So this is a thing. It's happening. And I connected Sydney with Caroline from Sheffield Doc Fest, and they made it happen. They made last night happen. I just kind of showed up and grabbed a microphone and went for it.
And it was, it was like Sheffield does great parties, but that was a particularly special one, and not like other parties that have happened here before, because it kind of, for many reasons, but it felt really spontaneous. It just felt like everyone just gave themselves to it.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a part of our culture. It's a part of the house and ballroom community, the kind of improv style of just like going for it and like giving all of yourself through whatever it is, whether it's voguing, whether it's runway, whether it's face, whether it's realness, any number of categories. No matter what it is, you just kind of put your all into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the other performers on stage, they'd come up from London. Is that right?
Most of them, if not all of them, came from London. So in the UK specifically, that's where the ballroom scene is, really. They have balls in other places, but the bulk of the competitions happen in London, here.
Cool, awesome. And when, during the performance last night, like, you and the other performers gave a little kind of, I guess, history or like and how everything had evolved.
Yeah.
And that was super interesting. And I wondered if you could just talk a little bit more about like how everything's evolved.
Sure, yeah. I think it's really important in any space, but particularly in performative spaces, because so often we find ourselves in situations where people look to us to be entertainment, right? And don't know the history and where we come from, and that actually the performance is like a cathartic dance and a cathartic space of healing when we didn't have a space. So in the 1920s and 30s, there was a Harlem drag ball scene in the U.S., specifically in the States, in New York, in Harlem. And it was in direct response to homophobia, transphobia, and racism. The folks made their own kind of safe space because they were kicked out of the church. They were kicked out of, they didn't have anywhere really to gather, and so they made these spaces, these drag walls that became like a performative space where they could be their true selves. Fast forward about 40 years, and throughout this 40 years it still happened. Drag balls happened in New York, and then it spread. Fast forward to the 60s, there's a particular trans woman, Crystal LaBeija, who, in direct response to racism and colorism in particular, wasn't pleased that she lost a drag ball, right, or a pageant that she rightfully should have won, and so from that, her and a group of people created the first house and like their own space, even out of the drag ball scene, and so then this group was called a house. The competitions were called balls, and so the house ballroom community was born, right? Yeah, and then it's just continuously evolved, slowly and surely, over the course of the next 40, 50 years. And then in the early 2000s in New York, the younger generation within the house and ballroom community found them, one, HIV and AIDS happened started in the 80s, and then the 90s happened, and I mean, absurd amount of deaths happened. Even through the early 2000s, and so the younger generation within the house and ballroom community found themselves like kind of mocking the larger mainstream houses and practicing in these community-based organization spaces, and then created a scene for themselves, by themselves, with very intentional messaging and thoughtfulness around HIV prevention and like how to incorporate that into the events. And then the Kiki scene was born, hence Kiki. Yeah.
Amazing, so interesting, and something that a lot of people wouldn't know that much about. Like, I think probably most people would know is Madonna and Vogue, and that would be the limit. And I guess some documentary people might know Paris is Burning. I don't know if people here have seen that. That was kind of the documentary that for a lot of people brought I think it was made in the early 90s, and it brought the Vogue scene to some people's consciousness. Was that in any way a reference point when you were doing the doc, or was that something you were defining yourself against, or I mean, was that anywhere in your mind?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any way for it not to be. Like, Paris is Burning is an iconic documentary, and in fact, Jenny's been very supportive of our film and the creation of our film. And so we were aware and conscious of it. We also knew that this would be a totally different experience because it's an insider and an outsider intentionally collaborating to create a project, right? And so, of course, we were aware and conscious and thoughtful about Paris is Burning, and also aware and conscious and thoughtful about creating something that was not that is our own film.
And it was made like 25 years ago, I guess.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
just because it's similar subject matter
Exactly.
shouldn't mean that it's any different. And so just staying on the topic of similar docs, of course, also here we've got Strike a Pose.
Yes.
Which I believe you saw on Friday evening.
Yeah. So Strike a Pose and Kiki have been in almost all of the same festivals, and many of us know each other actually, and so we're very supportive of Strike a Pose. They're very supportive of us, and this was the first time I finally got to see it. So it was really good. It was really, really good. I cried 3 times. So. Yes.
Has anyone seen Strike a Pose? Yeah. Okay, a couple of people. That's good.
It's so good.
It's good. Yeah, I think there's probably still more screenings going on of it, and I really recommend.
Today. There's a screening of it today.
Yeah.
I'm promoting Strike a Pose
do
too.
go and see it. They're really great companion pieces.
Yeah.
I think. So they kind of complement each other, don't they? And it's kind of
I
is
think
it
so.
nice having them sort of coming as a double?
Yeah,
kind of double
absolutely.
team?
Because our films, although the subject matter again is very similar, it's still so very different. Like the perspective and the stories are so different, but then the structure is so similar. They have 7 characters. We have 7 cast members. Vogue is like the center of both of them, but through very different lenses. Like what their experience was like on tour and since then, and ours isn't absolute no conversation with Madonna or the tour. You know what I mean? So there's so many similarities and so many differences, but all ultimately they really complement each other well, I think.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and it's kind of, in a way, you've kind of got like a couple of different generations speaking to each other, I guess.
Definitely, generations is a difference. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the rest of your time here. Have you seen other stuff here? Have you kind of been able to go to any of the discussion sessions or stuff like what else have you been up to?
I have not. Due to extreme jet lag, I actually have a full-time job. I mentioned I'm a bit of an activist. I work at a national nonprofit organization that works specifically to end LGBT youth homelessness in America. And so I went from work to the airport, did not sleep very well on the plane, and then got here. So I have been trying to catch up on sleep between the things. So I haven't seen much of anything. I want to see the Maya Angelou film today, and I would love to see the Michael Moore film as well, but they're at the same time, of course. Yeah. So.
And it's kind of hard to get tickets as well.
Oh, yeah, they're both sold out.
That's a mark of success, I guess, but kind of frustrating.
What about you? What have you seen?
Last night I went to see Presenting Princess Shaw, which is it's quite a strange doc in a way. It's a film about a woman in New Orleans who's got a beautiful singing voice, and just upload a cappella versions of herself singing on YouTube, and then it's completely randomly picked up by an Israeli kind of music artist called Cutie Man, who basically takes loads of YouTube videos and samples them and puts together beautiful symphonies. And so he did that with some of her songs. She kind of went stellar. It became this kind of massive thing. And before, her songs would get 20 views, and you can see that on screen. You can see it says 70 views, 20 views, and then this one gets millions. And she's invited to go to Israel, and she's all over the media. And it's like a Cinderella story for the YouTube generation. And she's super cool. She works in a old people's home in New Orleans, and she just wants to be a star. Actually, more than that. Actually, she just wants to. She just wants to sing, basically. That's as simple as that. She just wants to be out there singing, and keeps getting knocked back. And you see her going on The Voice in the US, and she doesn't get through the auditions. And it's just it's a really heartwarming story. But it's kind of inspiring for this session in a way, because there's there's a scene in it where she goes to perform in a club in New Orleans, and there's about 5 people there, but she really goes for it.
Yeah.
launches into it. So it's that's a really lovely film. And there's nothing complicated to it. I mean, I kind of was interested in how they put it together because it simultaneously shows Cutie Man putting together the music and her like going around New Orleans being unsuccessful. But you obviously kind of know that they shot everything with her afterwards. Otherwise, she would have been like, "Why are you filming me?"
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I highly recommend that. And I don't know. I mean, I guess that's the. And I did yesterday. I also did a Q&A for a film called The Age of Consequences, which is
The climate change film.
climate change film, yeah, which kind of makes the link between climate change and security.
Yeah.
And I guess it's a climate change film aimed at skeptical Republicans, which is
Interesting.
It's just a kind of interest. It's made by climate change activists,
Right.
but they're deliberately going for an audience who might not believe in climate change.
Right.
And it kind of, I guess it says to them, it doesn't matter if you don't believe in climate change.
Because it's happening.
It's happening, and it's an economic opportunity, and it's a good thing for the military. And so
Yeah.
it kind of hits all these touch points by like in a sort of in a way that I guess we could maybe read as ironic.
Yeah.
But I genuinely think if you were like a Trump supporter, you would go, "Oh, great!"
Right.
You know.
I met them. They're really awesome, actually. Not Trump.
Yeah. Surprising.
Yeah, no, not him. The filmmakers.
Oh yeah, Jared and Sophie.
Yeah, they're really sweet.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few activist filmmakers here.
Oh yeah.
I guess, which is kind of interesting, and I don't like that's always a really productive space in documentary.
I think so.
Is this going back to Kiki, is this a film that you'll be using for kind of, I guess, for education and inspiration in the community?
Yeah, I would hope so. Myself personally, of course, but I would hope that other people can use it to bring up conversations around HIV, around homelessness, around trans identities and a number of the themes that are captured in the film. I hope that people can use it as an educational resource or even to spark a conversation, even if it's something as simple as sparking a conversation for someone who may not be aware of any of the things, right? Yeah.
Awesome. It might be nice to get some questions from the audience out there. So Jan.
You can hear me. I'll shout. Oh, here we go. Forgive me, I haven't seen your film, but I just saw your trailer. But I was kind of interested in you. Is this your first film as a filmmaker?
Yes.
So I got the sense that you're a full-time activist, and maybe you could just talk about. Clearly, you look a very creative person, so it probably wasn't a big leap to jump into it. But what kind of help did you get, if any, in diving into a storytelling world, and how did you find the process?
Storytelling is such a large part of activism in and of itself. Like a lot of people, myself included, use our stories to contextualize larger conversations. And so I think that part of it I was already very familiar with, which made it much easier to like co-write the film. A director who, at this point, it's now my sister, but Sarah was really the brilliance and genius and had the filmmaking experience, although this is also her first feature film. She's done other film work before. And so collaboratively together, we kind of like, balance each other's niche a bit, yeah.
Awesome, yep. Another question back there.
Just building on that question a bit, I think it's incredible that you have a full-time job as well as doing all of this. And I just wondered if you could talk about how you managed to balance that and if you're able to inject some of your full-time job into the documentary and the other way around as well.
Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out how I do that. It is very tiring and taxing. I work a job that is not like hourly or anything, and constantly traveling and on the go. I work for a national organization, so although I'm based in New York City, I'm like almost never in New York City. 60 plus hours a week. And I just kind of like the extra time that I get from working so much I use for the film. youth homelessness is a big theme and concept in the film, and so that makes it easy to intersect the two. And I'm also very intentional about not necessarily doing that because I created the film in partnership with Sarah and the community, like in my own time, and that it is its own thing separate from my job, right? And I'm intentional about like the boundaries between the two, just because it can get sticky and tricky and all the things. But I'm still trying to figure out how I'm able to do this. Actually, my job is very supportive of me as a person outside of work and of the film. They've seen it. They came to the New York City premiere all together, actually, the whole staff. So they're very supportive of me and the endeavor and the project and the community. So, yeah.
Cool. Do we have any more questions out there? Okay, I'll ask another one. Just thinking generally about what's going on in the US at the moment. I'm sure you are asked this continuously whenever you leave the US. But is this the kind of, is this a scary time with Trump on the horizon? Is it realistic Trump might actually become president? Like, what's your take on what's actually going to happen?
Yeah, so it is very scary, especially as an African-American man living in a country where we have to have a thing called Black Lives Matter because people don't even get that, right? So it is scary. It is realistic that he could very well win, unfortunately. There's this thing happening where, so you have Trump supporters, you have Hillary supporters, you have Bernie supporters, and I find a lot of colleagues of mine who are Bernie supporters that, like, if they don't vote for him, they're not gonna vote, and that makes it more realistic that Trump could get into office, which makes it that much more scary of a thing. So I'm having like a lot of conversations now with like, actually, if you don't vote for Bernie, you still need to vote, with a lot of friends. So, yeah.
And I guess from here we observed the Bernie phenomenon and it seemed amazing. But like being on the ground, like how was that being in the kind of in the Bernie feeling the burn?
I think that a lot of people are still feeling the burn, right. and that's great. And also, I don't know that it's realistic that he would win, right? Like just because of how things are set up politically and what that looks like. So people are definitely feeling the burn, and I don't know that that's enough to get him in office. So it is what it is.
So everyone kind of needs to get behind Hillary.
Perhaps.
Even if they're kind of holding their nose, they kind of have to do it.
Yeah, I would rather that happen than Trump to get in office.
Oh yeah, it's kind of the only option now, isn't it? So just before we finish, tell us what's next for you. I guess you're touring the film more. Do you have any other projects coming up?
Yeah, so the film is continuing to tour in festivals. We're in distribution conversations both internationally and in the U.S. I will be working on a docuseries in the coming years about trans men of color. And I will continue to do the work that I do in activism. Right now, my focus is LGBT youth homelessness, but eventually I want to go on a global LGBT rights, so.
Awesome. Okay, well, it's been a real pleasure having you here. Thanks so much for coming in. And there's more screenings at the Festival of Kiki, is that right?
Tuesday.
Yep.
I'm still mixed up with the military time, but it's on Tuesday.
Yeah. Sometime on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Twiggy.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming, and enjoy the rest of the festival, everyone.
Thank you.